Hey, what's going on? It's Quinn David Furness. Welcome to my show. Quinn David Furness presents the Beantown podcast for Saturday, September 21st, 2019. Hang on. What's 09212019? This might be a palindrome. Okay, so if you switch, hang on, I'm doing something here. Oh boy. Okay. 9, so you don't get the 0 at the front, but we can just forget about that. So 9, and then 10, 2019, 9. Oh no, it would have been the 10th. Is the 10th a palindrome? 9, 10, 2019, 9, 10. Yeah. Hey, if it was the 10th, it would have been a palindrome. That would have been cool. Or does it works for other days too, or just the 10th? Dude, blowing my mind. So the September 10th, 2019 is a palindrome. That's got to only happen once every, gazillion years. And I missed it. We love palindromes on this show, and I missed the one day in the lifetime of the universe that was actually a palindrome. Boy, you hate to see that. Gosh darn it. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Well, I'm lying prostrate on the couch. You didn't think I was going to break that word out, did you? Prostrate. Prostrate. It's a weird word, right? You don't use that word very often. And I don't want to speak for you all, but I think I speak for you all when I say prostrate is just like not one of those, words that you would use. It's like, you're playing Pokemon and you come across a Tauros in the Safari Zone and you're like, what are you doing here? Like, I didn't even realize you were a Pokemon, or like Electabuzz or something, which could easily be a campaign slogan if Mr. Aldrin ever decided to run. But yeah, it's just like, that's a weird word, man. I didn't even know that was a thing. Prostrate. I'm lying horizontal on my couch right now. That's a better word, horizontal. And we're coming to you live from the far north side of Chicago, where it's super muggy. Holy cow. So I just got out of a movie tonight, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I was walking back to my apartment, it's raining. Not the like downpour kind where you're instantly soaked after 5 minutes, but the kind where it's just like a little pitter patter, and if you're just walking down the block, you'll hardly even feel it. But after, a 3/4 of a mile walk, you'll get some wetness on you. So I undress and I'm sitting here in they're not tighty whities, but they are tight and they're gray. So tighty grays. And I still feel like sweaty, which is weird because it's, probably right around 70 degrees outside. It's not that hot. It's just muggy. Everything's sticking. And I got back from a run earlier this afternoon, and it just took me forever to get dry, getting out of the shower and stuff. Love that mugginess. That's a great word. Well, if you couldn't tell, my voice is a little bit deeper. I'm fighting off a cold. It was a fascinating physiological experience these past 5 days or so. And before I jump into this, I'll mention that listener discretion is advised when you're listening to the Beantown podcast. Number one, we'll occasionally use some foul language. And number two, the podcast is objectively terrible. And I got some scotch. They say, hey, Quinn, you're not supposed to drink and eat alcohol.
Until we talk again.
What the hell was that? Did you guys hear that? Dude, I think my phone's listening to me. What the hell was that, man? That's totally uncool. You hear about those Siri machines, or is it the Alexas that they'll like say something unprovoked, and then sometimes the machines laugh at you, and it's just like, oh no. I think that's what my phone just did. We're gonna have to go on the playback to see if you guys picked that up, but I swear to God, I'm just sitting here, and I was about to talk about something, and my phone, I don't even remember what it said, man. Dude, it's wild. Yeah, you say, hey, Quinn, you're not supposed to drink when you got a cold, but sometimes you need. Here's the thing: in the old days, Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, Scotch, I think is the only medicine they had. So, I'm just paying respect to my elders. Really, I think that's in the Bible. I'm pretty sure that originally in the book of Exodus there are only 9 commandments, and then some weary parents, after getting shit talked, pardon the language, from their kids over and over again, decided to rewrite it and add a 10th one: honor thy father and mother, yada yada yada. Okay, so about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in my office and started to feel a little tickle in my throat. And when I get colds, it's usually pretty standard, pretty classic. I get a sore throat for about a day, maybe a day and a half, and then I get the sinus stuff going on. My nasal passages get all inflamed, get a decent amount of snot going. Usually, unfortunately, this is specific to me, but I deal with bloody noses just because I got, sensitive nostrils or something, man. It's even worse. Anytime I have a cold when I'm visiting my parents in Oregon, because they live at elevation, that's the absolute worst, man. I never stand a chance. Get bloody noses like twice a day. It's the worst. But, and it usually the whole thing lasts on average for me like 6 days. If it's a real bad one, it bleeds over into a 7th. So I know how my colds work, and I usually just kind of ride them out, and that's that. Well, a couple weeks ago, I'm sitting in my office one day. It's like a Monday or Tuesday afternoon or something, and I feel that tickle in my throat coming. So I run over to the CVS, 3-minute mile, and I buy up the emergency. I said, give me the whole store. I want that orange fizz, which would have been a good nickname for me in high school if I was a ginger, but alas. So I pounded like 3 emergency packets, which is, I think, about 17,000% your daily vitamin C intake, your recommended daily vitamin C intake. And I banished that tickle in the back of my throat to hell. So you're thinking, gee, Quinn, real good. You probably staved that cold off for a while. I usually get 2 colds a year, one in the fall, right around this time. I remember getting a cold last year, first week of October, I think it was, or last week of September, when I was in Iowa and Utah. Great places to get a cold. Speaking of elevation, boy, did I have bloody noses in Utah. And then usually one in the spring. Fall tends to be worse. Spring tends to be pretty classic, but no longer than 5 or 6 days. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe I played a little God here, and I'm not going to get a cold this fall. Wouldn't that be pretty neat? Well, look who spoke too soon. They put the horse in front of the carriage and foot in mouth. So I hop on a train this Tuesday afternoon. So we're getting closer to real time. 5 days ago. And hang on, I was just checking my tweets. Mercy. So I hop on a train Tuesday afternoon, going from Chicago up to Kenosha, Wisconsin. About a 90-minute train ride. And I swear to God, on the walk over from my office to Union Station, which is a mile, no issues, felt perfectly fine. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for my neighbor. Won't you be mine? Could you be mine? Get on the train, everything's good, feeling great. Listening to some Bleachers on my iPod. You steal the air out of my lungs, you make me feel it. Don't take the money. You got me, run away. Love me some Jack Antonoff. If you don't know Bleachers, go check those guys out. Jack Antonoff was behind Bleachers. He did Fun. Remember the band Fun? with Nate Roos, Carry On, Some Nights. Nate Roos did that one song with Pink, right? You can't love again. Something like that. By about 5 minutes into this train ride, man, the tickle in the throat came back. Except it wasn't your grandma's tickle, right? And if your grandma's tickling you, you got to kind of decide for yourself at what age that's still appropriate. But I think, if you're like me and you've already turned 24, you're too old, right? Grandma can't be tickling you anymore, man. So, so the tickle's there, but what's really bothering me, and I don't usually get this bad, right? When I get these colds, usually the sore throat is just kind of its own thing, and it's not necessarily affected by other stuff. Boy, was my post-nasal drip intense. Damn, it was like a effing cord of mucus was crawling down the back of my throat every minute. Jeez, that was rough. It was. So the thing is, it wasn't even that painful. The throat wasn't that painful. It was just there was so much stuff back there. And I won't describe it in much detail to you, but you look in the back of my throat. I would go in the mirror and shine my iPhone flashlight back there, and oh my goodness. Usually when you get a sore throat, you're thinking, oh, it's going to be red back there. No, it was just mucus. I think I saw that Mucinex guy on a surfboard back there hanging 10. It was wild, man. So but the worst thing, I'm trapped on this train, and I'm thinking, okay, well, let me get to my hotel in Kenosha, right? Because I'm just training and Ubering everywhere. And I'm like, I'm staying right in like the heart of the city. There's got to be, Walgreens, CVS, something I can walk to. Naive Quinn was mistaken. So I get to my hotel, I check in, I'm feeling pretty crummy at this point, right? It's like 5 o'clock in the evening. And I get out of my work clothes and I pull up Google Maps on my iPhone because I don't F with Apple Maps. Occasionally, I don't remember or recall when this happens. Maybe when I use Safari, but I'll be using something on my iPhone that wants to link to Apple Maps, and then I accidentally click on it, and it takes me to the App Store, and it says, "Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me. I was blind, and I just can't live without you." For those young people listening to the podcast, that's a song by Player, not Slayer, Player. It's called "Baby Come Back." It's got a great music video. Ooh. Notification. Oh, not exciting. So, no new tweets. Okay, so I pull up Google Maps, right, because I don't have Apple Maps installed on my phone, and I'm like, all right, where's the closest drugstore where I can get drugs? I would even settle for an apothecary. Apothecary, Apothecary. There's nothing, I swear to God, within like 3 miles of where I'm at, which just seems absurd. In this day and age, I don't know if it was Obamacare or the leftists that, architectures or something, architects. You know who was a Mike Brady? What was the actor's name? David something, maybe. Rest in peace. Because the reason I mentioned that is the Brady Bunch just made an appearance. These 6 kid actors on Stephen Colbert's show this past week or the week before. You got Jan, Eve Plum, Cindy, which is Marsha, which is Maureen McCormick, Greg, which is Peter, which is and Mike, which is something Lookendale, something like that. I got all their names right. But you all remember Florence Henderson passed a couple years ago, and the father passed in like the 40s, I think, and then the maid just died, Alice, but I don't remember what her name was. She died like 2 or 3 years ago. Born again Christian, my favorite kind of Christian, and Brady Bunch, architect, Obamacare. Not a CVS or Walgreens or even an apothecary anywhere close to where I was staying. Boy, was that frustrating. So now I'm at the crossroads where it's like, do I want to pay out of pocket for an Uber to take me to a drugstore and then pay for it to come back and pay for the drugs, or do I just tough it out at this point? And I'm like, well, the post-nasal drip is strong at this point, and I don't have any congestion or digestion or other types of gestions at that point. But I was like, anyone who knows me knows that my frugality most frequently rules above all else. So I just decided to drink a lot of water and hope for the best. Well, fast forward, so that happened midday and onwards on Tuesday, and then Wednesday continued. Actually, the post-nasal drip continued to be strong until at least late afternoon on Wednesday, which was rough because I was working on the road on Wednesday, which is kind of never fun to do. And then, by midday Wednesday, the nasal congestion had begun, which I'll take. I feel like the nasal congestion and the nasal inflammation, I've been around the block a couple of times. I know how to handle that. The post-nasal drip was really bugging me because I don't usually get it that severe to where you can actually, feel the mucus streaming down the walls of your throat. That really sucked. But the nose stuff started by midday Wednesday, and thankfully I haven't had any mini. First I said any, and then I switched to mini. I haven't had many problems sleeping. Tuesday night was actually crazy. I was staying at a Wyndham, Wyndham, in Kenosha, right on the water there. And I had the best sleep I think I've had in maybe a year or so. I just went down hard at about 9 a.m. And I don't think I actually 9 a.m. Bro, what are you talking about? It was 10 p.m. I'm switching my story here. I was down by 10 p.m. I don't think I woke up till 7 a.m. And it was just boom, straight sleep. But it wasn't the straight sleep where you're concerned that it's oh, if I don't remember anything from my sleep, then was it actually even really worth it? Because then you just, boom, snap your finger and the day starts again. No, I woke up, I felt completely refreshed, which is just one of the best feelings in the world. And 95% of the time when we're awake, we're nowhere close to that feeling of restfulness and energization, if you will. But that happened Tuesday night. And then the other nights, I was staying at Marriott in Milwaukee, Marriott downtown, for Wednesday and Thursday night. And had okay sleep. Not amazing, but not bad either. Nothing to write home about. Not that you would typically write home about the type of sleep you've been getting. Is it good sleep? Is it bad sleep? I don't know. I don't really write home. We got texts and messages and emails and e-chats and web chats and webkins. And I don't know, what am I in the Civil War or something? No, I don't write home. So conference came and went. I was in Milwaukee for a work conference. a lot of law people. And I'll answer your first question. No, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did not make an appearance. But a lot of people of the law, judges and jurors and juror is a hard word to say, and I think 30 Rock has a series-long gag on that. Juror, Juror, the rural juror. And, no, there weren't actually many judges nor jurors there. I think one judge perhaps made an appearance, a keynote speaker of sorts. But we, worked on Thursday, went fine. The tough thing for me about conferences, and I'm not a conference guy. I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for all of you, but allow me to speak for all of you when I say conferences, more than almost anything else these days, are like, if you're an extrovert and you really like gain a lot of energy from meeting with and talking to new people, then it's like the greatest thing of all time, because there are just a million new people for you to meet. But for people like me who are on the opposite end of that spectrum, I just hit my nose with a microphone. I don't know if that came through at all. I was just readjusting from my prostrate position. That's a fun word, isn't it? Get a sip of my whiskey here. In case you're wondering, I think 22 minutes into this podcast, I might be coming across as drunk, high, sleep deprived, or all three. The answer is none, actually. I'm sipping on whiskey right now, first drink of the day. Never been high in my life, and not sleep deprived. Slept like 10 hours last night. So I think it's just the cold, kind of hanging on for dear life here, deepening in my voice and making the podcast a little loosey-goosey. But I think this is going pretty well, actually. Check my tweets. No new tweets. Oh, gosh, where was I? For people like me, introverts, it's just, it's really tough. There's just so many new people, and I do like meeting new people and learning about their stories, what they're passionate about, why they're here, that sort of thing. But when you got to do that, like, at every single thing you go to, especially like dinners and cocktail hours, man, I really don't. It tires me out fast, man. And so when you throw a cold into the mix, which more than almost anything just messes with my head, and my clarity of thought is just really in poor shape. It just makes trying to like talk to people really hard. And thankfully, the sore throat situation this time around has not been that bad. The post-nasal drip was frustrating, but the overall pain has really not been an issue. You get cold sometimes where your sore throat is really on its game, and then it just hurts to talk. I recall this wasn't a cold, but last fall/winter, I had a huge tonsil problem. Literally, my tonsil was huge, but not both of them, just one of them. Stage left from the way I face. And I recall being at my aunt's house for Thanksgiving, Auntie Anna Ogunake, who's podcasting legend. She's been on before. And I recall because they host a big Thanksgiving there every year, and they always bring in lots of interesting people. And, of course, it's no one I know. So there's a lot of talking and meeting and discussing that goes on there. And I remember just feeling so badly in two senses of the word. One, I just physically felt like absolute garbage because my throat hurt so badly. But in a more metaphysical way, if you will, I felt badly because it's like there are all these interesting people here, and I like want to meet them and talk to them, but I must seem like this absolute, not like a bad person or anything, but just like, what's this kid's deal? Because he's being super quiet and he's like giving one-word responses and not saying anything. They probably didn't even know I was the host of an award-losing podcast like Quinn David Furnace Presents the Beantown Podcast, one of the better podcasts in all of Chicagoland, and your number one source for misinformation on the internet, right? It's like they probably didn't even know that. So it's just like, the sore throats can be a bummer. So that wasn't the case for me. All that to say that wasn't the case for me this time around. It just, energy levels were low. Clarity of thought was low. Yeah, and I was working too. It wasn't like I was just, hanging out. Thursday wasn't too bad because we were at the hotel the whole time. So when necessary, I could duck back into my room, and actually took a couple hours in the afternoon before I had to do a fair. Not had an affair. I had to do a fair. Wayfair. Fair trade. Eat more chocolate. Coldplay. I slept for about 2 hours, which was nice. Friday was tougher, right? Because I was up by 6:30 or so in the morning. Weird situation, right? So I was only technically at the conference through Friday, yesterday. The conference went until Saturday, this morning, but I was only attending through yesterday, which is what I agreed upon with my boss, yada, yada, yada. So that meant, right, I had to check out of the hotel Friday, which means that, I got to do something with my luggage. And I'm not a super heavy packer, but I was gone for 5 days, 4 days, something like that. So I had my backpack, and I had a duffel bag, which I think is not bad, considering I have, workout clothes, I have business clothes for this conference, and I have my me clothes. That could be my new clothing line. Me clothes, the me line by Quinn. It's like Beeline, but the me line. Feline, Beeline, me line, Quinn line. Inline skating. What does that mean? Is there an outline? I know there's an out back, but is there an outline? These are the things I think about. So I had to decide what I was going to do with my luggage because we were spending the whole day at Marquette Law School. And, I was checking out of the hotel, so I don't want to walk around all day with a duffel bag. So it's like, what's the deal with duffel bags? So I wake up real early, 6:30 a.m., to walk my duffel bag over to a good friend of the podcast and former roommate, Sam J. Anderson, who lives in the Milwaukee, I was going to say area. No, he lives in the city, about a little over a mile from where this hotel is. So I'm like, all right, let me wake up early before anything happens with this conference, before we go over to Marquette, before I have to check out, etc. I walk it over there. He's generous enough to give me a ride back. But all this happens, I walked, over a mile in the morning, and it was muggy, and then got a ride back all before, 8 a.m. on a Sunday. Nope, Friday. This goes back to the clarity of thought point made earlier. So they check out of the hotel. I got my backpack with me, and the whole day Friday was just tough. The sessions were great, but just not as geared towards me. And so I was doing a lot of ducking in and out because I was feeling pretty poorly. But that came and went. Got back, took the bus back from Marquette to the hotel, and then walked the same walk that I had done about 12 hours earlier back to Sam's apartment. And we had a fairly fun night Friday night. Did a little Oktoberfest action in Milwaukee, which was fun. I was fortunate. My health definitely improved once the conference was over. Take that for what you will. But I felt pretty good last night. And the nasal congestion really started to clear up quite a bit. There was still lots of inflammation, but there wasn't as much mucus. And I'm fortunate to say that today, for the most part, I felt really good. My nasal passages are fairly clear right now. Still had some snot occasionally. There's almost no post-nasal drip. And I still had these weird like chest pains, but not like a bronchitis thing. It's lower. Like if you take your hand and you put it all the way where your sternum stops, there's pain like right there and right below. So it's not even chest as much as it's like upper gut. And I can't tell if I'm about to, like, at any given moment have just raging diarrhea or if it's just like stomach cramps, but I haven't been eating that much while I've been sick, so there's not really much in there. So it's just kind of a perplexing thing, but it really comes and goes. I'll go 2-3 hours without having any issues, and then I'll be sitting here, and for like half an hour, it's just pretty intense. And it's like, hey, what are you doing? Like, make up your mind. I did wake up this morning, and I had a crazy amount of phlegm going on in my chest, and I had a pretty heavy cough. I felt bad. I thought for sure I was going to wake Sam up, my former roommate where I was staying, because I woke up at about 7, because I went to bed at like 10:30, and he didn't get up until 9ish or so. But I don't think I woke him up, and if I did, then he was kind enough to not chastise me for it. Well, speaking of chastise, Jessica Chastain, that's coming up in the second half of this episode. But before we get there, we should really read some ads. And before I read some ads, I should really drink some scotch. So bear with me for 1 second here. That's the good stuff. All right, let's read some ads here. All right, here we go. Home Pride Organ, are you tired of selling your house for less than a quarter of what it's worth, all because you couldn't find a reliable home inspector in time? Well, Oregon listeners, there's good news. Home Pride Inspection Services in Bend, Oregon, is Central Oregon's hottest new home inspection provider, with inspection services including things like heating and cooling, roofing, plumbing, and so much more. Home Pride Oregon is both contractor certified and home inspection certified, so you know you're getting the good stuff all day long, 24/7, 365. If you're tired of big real estate stranglehold, I feel dizzy after that, on the home inspection market, and you want a safe, certified home inspector that you can trust, you better call Steve at 541-410-0316, or you can go to homeprideoregon.com. Sorry, I was typing something. Again, that's fine. I'm still typing something. You know, typing and talking when there's two separate things. I know some people who can do that. I cannot do that whatsoever. So in the span that it took me to vamp right there, I was able to finish typing because I remembered something I wanted to tell you all coming up here. Again, it's 541-410-0316, and I didn't want to forget. Or visit homeprideoregon.com. Home Pride Oregon, inspection perfection. Shout out to the Samson Q2U series. Doesn't matter if my voice is deep, rich, and mahogany-esque down here because of the nasal inflammation and the phlegm in my chest, or if it's high-pitched like if I got ball crunched as I did last week skydiving. Hey, if you haven't listened to that episode, I'm not one who goes around and just, toots my own horn and says, oh, you got to listen to this episode, that episode. That's a good one to listen to. I think that was just a genuinely funny story. I went skydiving, got my balls crunched, and I puked. But the puking wasn't from the skydiving. It was from the driving there. I also shout out to Torrid Kurz, who I learned, and this is no lie, I learned apparently is like a plus size lingerie or clothing line. I tell you what. Maybe this says more about me than it does anyone else, but when I got the Torrid Kurz magazine a couple months ago, I opened it up, I said, these are real women. And you look at it, and they're not, you can tell, the Victoria's Secret models, they got, probably some eating issues or something because there's just bones where there shouldn't be bones, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on the flip side, these ladies in the Torrid Kurz magazine, they're not like, Olive Branch, Mississippi, $4 for the jumbo platter riding around on their mobility scooters. I mean, they look like normal people. And if normal is plus size, then sign me up, That's all I'm going to say. All right, last one here. Cuts by Q. Oh, I think we forgot the slogan for the Samson Q2U series. When God speaks, he uses a Samson. There we go. Bob and Weave, speaking of weaving, we are just seamlessly integrating our ad reads here, which is pretty nuts. I feel like a 20th century classical composer. Bob and Weave. Let's see. We all know that I'm not wearing my glasses and I'm sitting far away. And you're probably saying, Quinn, don't you have Cuts by Q memorized by this point? Yeah, but with this cold and I'm about halfway through my glass of scotch, it's just, and I'm getting pretty tired. So no one's listening to this right when it comes out. But I'm recording. It's about 11:15 by now on a Saturday night. This episode is going longer than I expected it would. So it's all kind of coming together. I'm getting sleepy. Cold is limiting my mental abilities. And I don't feel buzzed in any way. But, you get a sip or two of scotch, get that little warm feeling going in your chest. Oh, all right, let's try this one more time. Bob and weave, we all know the hairstyle. We all love it. But how many Chicago-based independent barbers can actually give it to you the way you deserve? Enter Cuts by Q. It's like Enter Sandman, just completely different. Cuts by Q has been independently owned and operated since 1995 and is probably one of the better barbershop operations serving Chicago, Cook County, and greater Chicagoland. From beehives to bangs, faux hawks to flat tops and everything in between, call Cuts by Q at 815-298-7200, or you can email cutsbyq@yahoo.com. Again, that's Cuts! QTZ by Q at yahoo.com. Oh, when you need a fresh do, something snappy and new, just call the experts at Cuts by Q. Tell you what, no scratchy voice is going to bring my singing voice down. I'm lean, mean, and in charge. And I don't really know what that has to do with my singing voice, but, I said it. I just found a hair on the bottom of my scotch glass. That came from my scalp. What are you doing there? Jeez. Get off the glass, man. Oh. There's another one. What the hell? My glass is hairy. Harry Osborn, James Franco, Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man. That's J.K. Simmons quote, not James Franco, though. Okay, I promised you all, it's 11:11, make a wish. I wish Jessica Chastain was here. She's growing on me, man. I really didn't know her that well until the last couple of years. And the more I see her, not only is she visually appealing, I just think she's a hell of a good actress. And I used to always get her confused with Bryce Dallas Howard, but not anymore. I feel pretty comfortable now in distinguishing the two. But before I get to it, Chapter 2, I want to mention two other things real quick. So I got home from Milwaukee this afternoon and went for that run I briefly alluded to, and showered up, and I'm walking out, so coming back, I noticed right next to my apartment, not on the street my apartment is on, but the closest intersection in that street, so the one perpendicular to the street I live on, and the block going north on that street, there's like a Jeep parked in the middle of the street, and then like a sign next to it that says block closed for Bloc Party. And I'm just like, okay, that's weird. Nothing about this looks official. And I noticed because I hadn't heard anything, but then again, I've been gone since Tuesday. I see a tree outside my apartment, which is not the conspicuous aspect, right? That tree had been there for years, but there's signage with thumbtacks. I've never seen a thumbtack inserted into a tree before. Fascinating stuff. And it says something like, we're having a block party right here, 2 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, September 21st. And, bring a chair and have some fun. And so naturally I was like, no, I don't want to. So I'm going to come back to that later in like 30 seconds, but I just want to mention I sat down to eat something because I hadn't had any lunch after my shower, and I was going to watch an episode of Better Call Saul on Netflix because I have started watching the show, and I'm not very far into it, literally like 2 or 3 episodes. But of course, Netflix will show you, whatever they want to promote right at the top of the screen there when you visit the website. And I had heard about this, but I hadn't really read anything about it. The Zach Galifianakis movie came out, which is like a Netflix movie, Between Two Ferns, the movie. And that's one of my favorite comedy series of all time. So that there aren't very many things that I'll see pop up on the internet where I'm like, oh, drop everything, I'm going to watch this. That was one of those, because Between Two Ferns is just one of the best written things of all time. So I watched the movie. It's like 85, 90 minutes long, something like that. I guess it's what I expected. I don't know. Because Between Two Ferns is so good, but it's also so short, right? There's only 20 episodes or something like that. And each one of them is at max like 6 minutes long. Some of them are like half of that long. So to turn something like that into a full feature length I knew it was going to be strange the first time I saw a trailer for it. And it was very strange. There were plenty of moments that were like, oh, love this. I see the Galifianakis humor. That's good. And they're very subtle too. The jokes for the most part in this movie, at least the ones that I found to be really funny, were not jokes that were like set up really well, or even jokes. It was just kind of comical lines in very humorous situations. And no one really told you, oh, this is where you're supposed to laugh. You just kind of had to determine for yourself whether or not you found something to be humorous. So in that regard, I liked it. Overall, it was just, very strange. And again, I don't really know if I expected something different from that. But I'm glad they didn't try to overdo it with the length for any reason. I know most comedies are not long. But, yeah, I think if you like Between Two Ferns, it's worth, an hour and a half of your time. Just because, a lot of it is really strange, but there is a lot of just mini bits from, what you would expect from a classic Between Two Ferns episode. There is plenty of screen time dedicated to these interviews, and you get interesting people on them. McConaughey, kills me that she's the second one that's coming up here, but Awkwafina's on it. She didn't really do anything, but she's in there for like 30 seconds. They get what's her face from X-Men, Tessa Thompson is one of them. Who else? I don't know. You kind of night school lady, Tiffany Haddish. Who, boy, and I try not to say much because it's not my place as a fledgling comedian, but I don't think Tiffany Haddish is that funny. I don't know. I feel like I missed the big joke with her. I kind of feel the same way, honestly, and this just starting to make me look bad because of the demographic similarities, but Leslie Jones, where I feel like the whole joke is just like them as a person, but what they actually do is not that funny. Like, their material is not that interesting. I don't know. Leslie Jones is gone from SNL, and I don't feel like I will miss her, really. I don't know. She was such a bad actor. Just very much a one-trick pony. What was I even talking about, man? Oh, Between Two Ferns. Yeah, if you like it, check it out. There's interesting footage. Chrissy Teigen, a really strange, fast acting, like effing heartburn medication. Fast acting plot with Chrissy Teigen. That is like, I don't even know how to describe it, and I don't want to give it away. It doesn't really make any sense, but it's there. It's there. I don't understand why, but it's there. So yeah, if you're interested, if you like Between Two Ferns, check it out. If you're not into Galifianakis style of humor, then you'll probably watch it and be like, why did it, like, where did the jokes happen? Like, I missed it. I feel like I missed the whole thing. Of course, the heavy amount of Will Ferrell as well, because it's, Between Two Ferns is a Funny or Die thing. So, I watched that anyways. Then I was like, well, I'm not really doing much tonight. I'm still kind of lying low from this cold, which I felt pretty good all day. And I was like, you know what? I want to try to stay close to home. And none of the people I know who are up here are around right now. So I decided, I had been meaning to do it for 2 weeks now, ever since it came out. I decided to go see It Chapter 2. And on my walk there, the Bloc Party comes back into play, right? Because I walked through it just to see what it was like. Well, the first thing you notice is that there was no party. So the street was blocked off. There were very few cars parked on the street. But I'm walking down, and there's just nothing going on until I get to the right where the block ends and the next street, intersects. And there are 4 guys sitting there in lawn chairs with a grill, listening to Bloc Party, the British band. I don't know if my listeners know who Bloc Party is. They had a song featured in FIFA, which was maybe not their big break, but a big break for them. They're pretty good. Their lead singer is black, which you just don't see that very often from rock bands, which is cool. Yeah, check them out. Bloc Party. Helicopter is a classic, very recognizable guitar riff. It sounds like I'm a wind-up toy trying to sing it with my cold. But it wouldn't sound good anyways, because you just have to listen to them do it. So that was, it was just 4 bros hanging out at a Bloc Party, listening to Bloc Party, probably grilling some sausages. And I was like, okay. I didn't say anything to them. I just kept walking past. Because I was like, I'm going to go watch this movie, I could listen to Bloc Party at home. So I go watch It Chapter 2. Okay. Quick hitting review, because we're on minute 47, 48 here. And I've literally been out of the movie for less than 2 hours. So I haven't had a lot of time to organize and formulate my thoughts. So It Chapter 2, of course, sequel to It. It wasn't called It Chapter 1. It was just It. 2017. Pretty much exactly 2 years apart. Based on the novel It by Stephen King, which I just read for the first time last month. It's about 1,200 pages long. It is a behemoth. And the movies, when combined, are about 5.5 hours long. So there's a lot going on there. The 2017 version of It was a good movie. Well done, well paced. The acting was excellent. Did a decent job of staying. You're going to hear me say this a couple of times. Staying true to the story, staying true to the book. I don't think staying true to the book or not staying true to the book makes something a good or a bad film, but I think it does authenticate it in a way in which. Or, for example, if you're able to stay true to the source material and also make it a compelling screen version, to me that's far more interesting than just making a compelling screen version that doesn't really seem to have any reverence of any kind for the original source material. So I appreciated that It 2017 was able to do that in a smart way. Whiskey break. Scotch break. So, It Chapter 2 was always going to be a harder sell, and everyone and their mom knew it, because It 2017 is your classic bunch of kids running around in the summer. There's this scary-ass clown who only pops up occasionally, right? They follow the Jaws blueprint, not in that you don't see the monster for the first 37 minutes, but just you almost never see the monster. And it works out very well. Good character building. in classic Stephen King fashion, as much of, a like supernatural horror there's as much of like a real life horror, which in this case is Henry Bowers and just the town of Derry itself. Right, so Pennywise is only one of the like bad guys in the original It. It Chapter 2 is a lot tougher to sell because it's not told from the perspective of these kids and this coming of age thing that's super relatable. It's just super interesting, and a clown is a scary thing to kids, and it's really not that scary to adults. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but it's not that scary. But boy, it I'll come right out and say it misfired. Some big issues, and I'm not going to be able to remember every single issue I have with it. Let me start with the positives. What I really liked, the casting was fantastic. It's crazy how similar these adult actors they got to play, the grown-up version of the kid actors they got from It 2017. It's scary how close they were. Some people, like Bill Hader, you really didn't have to do that much. Just throw on glasses and throw on a similar hairdo, and you're like, okay, we're good to go here. But other people, like, and I don't know the actor's name, but the actor who played Eddie, the facial tics and all that stuff was, oh man, that was amazing. He was really good. So I thought the casting was excellent. Other things I liked about it, I guess. Boy, that's kind of it was an entertaining movie, right? I didn't feel like I wasted my money. I had a good time. But boy, there were a lot of misfires, and I'll try to keep it as macro as possible. But I will mention there are spoilers. Now, there's not that much to spoil because there aren't that many like game-changing things that happen in It Chapter 2, and there's honestly probably only like a max of 2 things you could spoil. But the first criticism I have is my biggest criticism. It's the editing, which maybe makes me kind of sound like a film snob, but editing and pacing they're not the same like type of thing, but the bad editing led to some serious microscopic pacing problems, which in turn led to some large-scale pacing problems. Not necessarily. The small pacing problems weren't always explicitly tied to the large pacing problems. I guess those are 2 separate issues. Let me start with the editing and the microscopic pacing problems, and I'll get to the larger pacing problems. I lost track. It's something I noticed right away in the movie, and it just continued on and on and on and on. There were scenes, many of them in this movie, where you would just jump from horror to comedy to drama to thriller, all in the span of like 2 minutes, and the music would change. The lighting would change, the tone would change, but it's all one scene. And you'd just be like, wait, how was I supposed to feel here? I missed something. Oh, now we're on a different type of thing. But oh, okay, now we're doing this. It was really not distracting, but just like you could never sink your teeth into anything, which is shocking to say. Because of the movie's runtime, which is another criticism we'll get to. But it was crazy. Like, the whole mood would completely do a 180-degree shift. The music would change. The action would change. It was just like, I don't know if I've ever seen a movie do that before. It was so weird. I didn't understand it. I'll tie runtime and larger scale pacing into one here. Man, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that was not necessary. because you physically you like, even only 2 hours after I finish watching it, I think about, okay, what happened in this movie, and there are so many little intricate things that you can forget about, and they did do their best to include a healthy number of things from the book that aren't necessarily critical to the plot, and part of me appreciates that, but part of me was also like, man, the first act is strange because it feels really rushed, and there's no good way to do this. And I, more than anything else here, I applaud the filmmakers for giving this their best shot, because it's a real hard one to do, right? In the original, or in It 2017, you don't have to do all this separate character work because they all live together in the same society, in the same universe. Well, these guys now, they live on, like 3 different continents. And so everyone's just getting one scene, but they don't really, those scenes that each character gets are critical, and you need to do something with character development of some kind in there. And they tried to do it, but they just didn't. It needed to be more effective. And I'm not a filmmaker. I don't have any comments or suggestions for how to do it better, but it wasn't that effective. So that first act is kind of rushed, and then the second act is, and I knew it was going to be like this if they stuck to the script, which they did, and I appreciate it. But the second act was just, man, in the actual book, I mean, it's probably like 200 pages. And so you try to turn that into one act of a movie, and it just goes and goes and goes. And it's not scary because they do the same thing over and over again, just in a different setting with different characters. And Pennywise, after a very short amount of time, is not scary in any way because you just keep seeing him, and they're not hiding him, right? That's something the first film did really well. He's just out there walking around, and it's just, oh, man. And then the third act, there's a lot of stuff going on also. It just drags so much. There are like, it wasn't like Return of the King necessarily, where it's like fade to black and you're like, oh, this is the ending. Because when they did all their, like, they weren't really false endings, but you were just like, I know this isn't the end because there's other things that have to happen. But there are so many like final defeats, and then something else happens. Oh, we're going to do a final defeat again. And it just happened like 4 or 5 times in the third act. And by the end, you're just not that compelled. You're like, what's at stake even at this point? Like, I don't care. So some major pacing problems. There were too many flashbacks, man. And I laud LAUD, the filmmakers, for doing their best, because they really paid tribute in a way to the original source material, because the book jumps all over the place from setting to setting. And so the movie kind of tried to do that here in Chapter 2 with a lot of flashbacks. But I almost felt like we rewatched half of the original movie just through flashbacks in Chapter 2. So honestly, I think, like, I don't know if they're going to do a supercut and how they're going to handle that. But it just felt like, I don't know. I guess it's nice if you haven't seen It 2017 since 2017, but it just felt lazy almost at times. And then, they had to do some serious CGI stuff with the actors, and then also do some voice stuff with them, and that was just kind of a little weird, and I get why you have to do it. But my I think last complaint here, or 2 more complaints. One, the special effects, the CGI, not that great. I felt really lazy, just like a big budget thing with a, pardon the language, shit ton of money, and they just didn't really care. It didn't add to the scariness. It just kind of felt like not rushed or anything, just not that compelling. Didn't love the CGI. And then I think I had one more point here. How they chose to end it. So it's interesting. They take a. That's my last point. Then I'm done. I promise, because I'm going over the hour mark, which is crazy. They take multiple swipes at Stephen King early in the movie about the fact that he's not able to write a good ending, which is maybe ironic with how this movie turned out. But for 1 second, humor me on this. The book itself, the ending is really trippy, man. If you never read it, I mean, I don't know what I can say that's going to convince you to go pick up a 1,200-page book other than it's one of the greatest horror books of all time. But the ending of the book is super strange, man. Like one or two, three of the characters, I think, jump into basically a time warp, like black hole sort of deal, and there's a turtle in there, man, and it's pretty strange. They didn't mess with any of that stuff in this movie, but instead how they chose to defeat the monster, not good, man. And I didn't like the lesson. In fact, there were a couple lessons, per se, at the end of this movie that I didn't like. One, and we're getting into big-time spoiler alert stuff here, but the fact that like they defeat Pennywise by bullying him? What? Okay. That doesn't make sense to me, man. But all right. And then the whole like Stan Uris note at the end, which they tried to do a whole like 3 billboards Woody Harrelson thing. They tried to make it like Stan's death was actually vital to the group surviving, or Stan's suicide. No, that's not. And that's extremely contradictory to what Stephen King intended in the book. And then, Bev ending up with Ben in the movie versus in the book, which is not what happens. Didn't love that choice. And the whole love triangle that they tried to just push over and over and over again with McAvoy and Chastain and the Ben actor, it was just so boring and not interesting and not in the source material, and just, man. The whole gay stuff with Eddie and Richie, again, that's something the movie did for itself. Nothing in the book would suggest that. I didn't mind it. It's a very 2019 spin. It was fine. I won't criticize that. I didn't think it hurt the movie in any way. It just did add a new dynamic that was nowhere to be found in the source material. And the last thing I'll say is, man, and this is my very last point C of tab 2B whatever on my last point, and then I'm done, I promise. In the book, and I'm forgetting, I'm willing to look past the fact that they completely cut out the Audra and the Bev's husband storylines, because those I think were interesting, but there's no way, like, just too much time. They wouldn't have been able to do it well. But Henry Bowers, they nothing, like, come on. You get him out of prison, you dedicate a decent amount of time to that. Then once he's out, it's like nothing happens, basically. In the book, when he goes to the library, book spoilers, and takes out Mike, that's a huge scene. It takes up not a lot of pages, but it's just like a big shock. And it takes Mike out of commission. And that's basically how he ends in the book, sitting in a hospital bed. And I'm not saying I would have liked to see Mike taken out of commission in the movie. I think it was nice that they included him, but the scene with him and Bowers is just like a snap of the finger and it's over. And Mike doesn't get his ass kicked. And Henry Bowers goes from like this crazy, I'm out of prison, completely unpredictable, you don't know what he's going to do with his knife guy, to like he attacks Mike but doesn't get any hits in on him, and then he's, spoiler alert, taken out. So that was just such a waste, man. There was no like human terror element in this. There was no dairy terror element. They completely, I mean, so much of the book, and the same goes for like The Shining, so much of the horror comes from the actual place, the actual setting. They did a decent job of that in 2017. They just completely discarded that in It Chapter 2, which I think is why it didn't really feel like a horror movie. This really just felt like a drama, like a sci-fi comedy almost. I did appreciate many of the laughs, but there were just so many of them that you're like, well, is this coming of age? Is this comedy, sci-fi? The one thing you don't think is horror. So that was, I don't know. Chapter 2 was never like an explicitly horrifying book. It was always much more like, or part of the book, it was always much more, coming of age, supernatural than Chapter 1. But yeah, it missed. And my final thought here, I applaud the filmmakers because it's a really tough ask, and I'm glad they had the balls to do it and make some of the choices they made. But I just wish they would have taken more time and gotten it done right, because there were just too many misses. Yeah, I would give it 2 out of 4 stars, I think. I didn't want to drop it to 1.5 because they worked really hard on it. But 2.5 out of 4 stars makes it kind of seem like, oh, it was close, it just didn't quite get there. It was worse than that. So entertaining movie. Don't go if you're looking for like the year's best horror movie, because you're not going to like what you find, I think. And then you're also going to be like, wow, this movie's got to be wrapping up. Oh, crap, there's still 90 minutes left. So it was solid. I'm glad I saw it, but I don't know. It's not memorable, right? You'll remember a lot of things from It 2017. It Chapter 2 will just kind of be like, oh yeah, and then they made a sequel as well. Whatever. All right. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you can always email us, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. Again, it's Beantown. Beantown podcast at yahoo.com. We always love to hear from you. Maybe some movie recommendations. That would be good, right? What should we watch? As the general PSA to everyone, I have seen Roadhouse, so that should clear up any confusion there. Okay, for all of us here on the north side of Chicago, this has been Quinn David Furness. This is my show, the Beantown Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. And, yeah. That's what we had for you. Hope everyone enjoys. Has a good week. Stay safe. Fall weather's coming. Maybe get out to a pumpkin patch. Did someone say apple cider donuts? We'll see. It could be fun. It could be tasty. That's what we got for you. Everyone have a good one. See you later. Stay healthy.